What's happening, guys? Dylan here from AYCB, dishing up another review, this time for The Way of the Bear from Rio Grande Games. In The Way of the Bear, you're going to be trying to rise up as the king of the 4 bear clans, and while this game never quite rises up to the occasion to be crowned king itself, it is still a very good light strategy game. It does a lot of interesting things, provides you with some interesting decisions, has an element of randomness that doesn't quite take over the game, and I think it's also a great game that could introduce people to the hobby, or if you're looking for a less intimidating game to play on a game night, this is a great one to choose. Let me give you all my thoughts and tell you what I think of The Way of the Bear. One area that pleasantly surprised me in The Way of the Bear was the artwork and the components. I went in not knowing quite what to expect, but because it's a lighter game and more family-oriented game, I guess I wasn't expecting there to be as much time put into that area. And there was. As soon as you open the box, inside the box, there's this beautiful artwork. It sort of goes from, conceptual stage all the way to completed stage of one of the bear characters. Really cool. Not necessary. You don't have to do something like that inside the box. It's purely just for aesthetics and to, add that little extra something. But I really appreciated that. The player boards have some really great characters on them. They're well drawn, great art. Add some flavor to each of the boards. There's not really any reason to choose one character or the other mechanically, but the look of them, I'm sure, will attract younger players as well as people who just want to, enjoy having different characters in front of them. That's pretty cool. The game board is probably the least interesting of all the components. It's still very beautiful, very colorful, a lot going on, but it just sort of all melds together. It's nothing really pops off. It doesn't feel super unique, and it's covered with tokens and bears, so you don't actually see the board so much as you see everything that's on it. So it's probably okay that that's the least interesting aspect. I was most surprised by the bear steals. I don't know why. I didn't go in necessarily expecting, oh, this is going to be a cheap component, but because there's 84 of them, and because this is like a lighter family game, they probably could have been made not quite as articulated as these and with a cheaper material, and it would have been completely fine. But they had a bit of weight to them. They obviously come in 4 different colors, and they feel like they actually have some good build to them. So I appreciated that, especially because that's the component you're handling the most in the game probably. The game mechanics in The Way of the Bear are pretty simple, and overall I think simple is a word I'll use to describe The Way of the Bear a lot. Whether it's the setup, the rules, playing a turn, a lot of things are pretty straightforward and pretty simple. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but just something that I noticed as I was going through the game. One thing I thought was cool is that the bear tokens kind of have a double use, and that is neat. Makes for a lot of interesting decisions. You're placing bears onto the map to be able to acquire these tokens, and tokens are how you're going to eventually win the game by getting sets. So that's one of the main functions of bears, but at the same time when you place, you're also using your bears as currency to be able to place those bears. So there's this double use for them where you're trying to manage, I need to save an orange because I want to be able to place it here by what's around it, but you also have to have the colors that are around it to pay for it. That's kind of neat to balance between them. So there is an element of randomness in the game. You're drawing bears from this bag of 84 bears or whatever's left in there, and sometimes you just won't draw what you need. It can be frustrating, especially because that is the most bears you can acquire in a turn is by going into the bag and doing it randomly. So that can dictate what you do in a turn, but usually there's ways to adjust. Actually, most of the time there's ways to adjust, and they even give you another option where you can take from the available bears on the temple tracks, and that kind of plays back to one of my issues I had with the game is there's no real consequences. I mean, there is, but they're so minor. Not getting the bear you want isn't a big deal because you can go to the track, and even if you just don't go to the track and just keep sticking with those random bears, there's so many different places to place. There's so many different, if you need a specific token, if I need to get this token right here, it's not the only spot where it exists. There's multiple spots where it exists on the map. There's usually another way to go about what you need to do. It never quite felt like I was making really tough decisions or I was being punished for bad decisions. And I know that not everyone wants to feel like they're being punished in a game, but I feel like without that, you just lose the sense of urgency and you lose some of that special something in the game that makes it you want to play again and makes it a little more interesting. So I think it's very accessible in that way, but I think that it can hinder a more experienced gamer's time with the game, not having that element in it. Another thing that kind of bothered me is that most games that I played ended in a tie. So the way the game works is if I complete my board and get all the tokens, we complete the round if I was the first player to go that turn, and the other person has a chance to complete their board. And generally, it's fairly simple to keep pace with your opponent. There was only a couple games I played where the game actually ended from getting all the tokens and someone was one or two tokens behind, and that was it. Most of them, we would both complete our boards and we go to the tiebreaker. In other games I've played, a tie game is like kind of a big deal. Like you guys both played so efficiently, or whatever the case may be. You tied, you go to the tiebreaker, and it's this really close thing. In this game, it just felt like a regular mechanic. It felt like you were kind of supposed to tie. And so most of my time was spent making sure I had the dragon seals, which is the tiebreaker. And that created some interesting elements, trying to manage how many dragon seals I had to compare to my opponent. But even then, it just felt like every game I had to focus on just getting dragon seals. That's a one-way decision. Just make sure I have dragon seals because we're likely going to tie or be close to tying that I'm going to need to manage this. So I didn't quite enjoy that aspect of it. But the dragon seal management, that part alone is interesting, and especially because some of the cards can give you dragon seals. Unused cards give you dragon seals, so you can start to balance, do I use this special ability or do I keep it for a dragon seal if I think we're going to tie? In theory, that should always be interesting, but because ties happen so often, it just loses some of its luster a little bit. So all that being said, this is a great family light strategy game. That's what I want to emphasize. I'm not a guy who goes and gravitates necessarily towards that kind of game, but I can appreciate it for what it is, and I think that those type of games are great to introduce people to the hobby, to sort of get them up to the next level of the deeper strategy games. And some people just love sticking with this type of game, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think on that level, I definitely enjoyed it. I played with some people who are way more casual gamers, and they loved it. They enjoyed how carefree it was. We could have a TV show on in the background, be taking our turns. It didn't feel like you really had to be super invested in everything that was going on or you're going to fall behind. It's a more relaxed experience in that way, which I think is great. One thing I'll comment on is I find it strange on the box. It says that this is for 14 and up age range, which I found outrageous, really. Like, that's the exact age range on Feast for Odin, which if you're telling me this is as difficult to learn as Feast for Odin, 100% disagree. I would say if you're 7, if you're 8, totally learn this game and play it. I think that might actually be the ideal range for some people to introduce them to the hobby. So I would ignore that on the box. In general, I think that there's enough interesting decisions and enough fun here for people that are into that lighter strategy affair or just getting into the hobby. But I think that if you're someone who really enjoys deeper strategy, you'll appreciate some things here, but it's not one that will necessarily draw you back in very often. So I definitely enjoyed my time with The Way of the Bear. I yearn for that deeper tactical strategic experience, and it lacks that, but it has a lot of things going for it. It plays very quick, quicker than I was ever expecting, which is great because sometimes you just need a game that you can finish quickly, or you can set up really quick and play when someone just only has half an hour to play a game. I was able to get through a game of this in some sessions in 20 minutes, sometimes including setup. Like, it can go really quick. Turns can involve just grabbing some bears or taking a tile or a token. So very quick game. I think that has a lot going for it. I love games that can find a way to be quick to play and still provide interesting and fun gameplay. The sealed cards provide a really nice twist. There's a deck of them here. They have ones that give you new actions you can do in your turn or modify the actions you have. Definitely a needed twist to the game. If it didn't have those cards, I feel like it would just have become a little more mundane quicker. Those cards inject a different new life to it. I can get discounts on things. I can, move bears around the map. So it adds a whole bunch of stuff in. That being said, I would have appreciated if there was even more options out of the deck. I feel like there's a lot of duplicates of cards, and some of them are just pretty straightforward. A one bear discount, it's good. It's not super interesting. There's probably some crazy things that they could have done, and I guess it would have made the game more complex, which is probably why I didn't go that direction. Likewise, the player characters, something I really thought was missing was I thought it would have been neat if each player character had their own ability, your unique power or action or something to set them apart a little bit more. As it stands, there's no difference between each player character. It's purely aesthetics. I feel like each one having their own ability, if they were properly balanced, would have made for a little bit more replay value. I could have come back and said, I'm going to try this character now because they have this ability. I could have had my favorites. Different characters against each other could have provided different experiences. I feel like that's something that could have injected a little more life into this game, and it would have been a really quick, easy addition. So that's something I was missing as well. But like I said, overall, I had a great time with it. It's just you have to temper your expectations if you're going in expecting a deeper game, because this is not that. But if you're going in with the right crowd or with the right mindset or the right environment of a more relaxed experience and nothing too intimidating, I think this game is going to really surprise you, and I think it's going to provide a lot of enjoyment and more than you're probably expecting. Overall, I thought The Way of the Bear was a pleasant surprise right out of the box in terms of its visual imagery, its aesthetics, and component quality. I wish it had been a little bit more of a surprise in terms of its mechanics and gameplay. I found some of it pretty straightforward and a little too simplistic. But that being said, it is catered towards a lighter strategy crowd and a family crowd. In that sense, I think that they did a lot of really cool things here, and I think it's a lot of fun. And I think that there are going to be a lot of younger players and people who are just looking for a more relaxing experience that are going to get a lot of mileage out of this game, and they're going to want to keep bringing it to the table. Me personally, I wish that there was a little more strategy and tactical decision making that felt like it was rewarding me or punishing me for good and bad decisions. But that being said, for what it is, it's still pretty good. I would definitely check it out if you're in the market for that kind of game. I think there is a lot you'll like here, and I think there's a lot it does that I haven't actually seen other games do, or other little twists on mechanics that I might have seen, but the twist itself is a little different. So that is my review of The Way of the Bear. Thank you so much for watching. We want to thank Rio Grande Games for providing this copy for us to check out. If you want to see our written review, you can find it on our website at allyoucanboard.com. It'll be a little more in-depth on what I've gone into here. We also have a lot more content on there you can check out. We have our YouTube channel with tons more videos. Reach out to us on social media, ask us some questions. We'll always answer. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.